There are places where childhood innocence and ancient darkness meet, where laughter echoes through pine trees during the day, but whispers replace them when the sun sets, where the line between campfire stories and reality becomes negotiable. Welcome to After Dark Horrors. Tonight's account comes from someone who spent 5 summers as a counselor at Camp Wayward Pines in northern Michigan. Someone who loved their job, lived for those 10 weeks each summer until their final week in August 2023. A week that started with 22 campers and ended with, well, that's why they're never going back. They've asked to remain anonymous. We'll call them Jordan. And before you ask, yes, Camp Wayward Pines is real. You can look it up. It's still operating, still taking registrations for next summer. The reviews are glowing. 5 stars. Life-changing experience, one parent wrote. They have no idea how right they are. What you're about to hear are 8 stories from Jordan's final week. 8 incidents that built to something none of them saw coming. Something the camp's administration desperately wants to keep quiet. Something about a tradition that goes back much further than the camp's official founding in 1987. So, turn off your lights, close your windows, and remember, every summer camp has its traditions. Songs around the campfire, capture the flag, s'mores, but some traditions should have been left in the past where they belong. This is After Dark Horrors, and these are the 8 unforgettable stories from a summer camp counselor's final week. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that you understand I'm not crazy, I'm not looking for attention, and I'm definitely not making this up. I have videos, photos. 16 other counselors who were there can verify everything I'm about to tell you. Well, 15 now. We lost Sam too, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning. August 13th, 2023, Sunday, the start of the last week of camp for the summer. I'd been working at Camp Wayward Pines for 5 summers. Started when I was 18, now I was 23 and one of the senior counselors. I knew every trail, every tradition, every stupid song we'd sing to keep the kids entertained. I thought I knew everything about that place. I was wrong. That Sunday was changeover day. The previous week's campers had gone home Saturday morning, and we had exactly 24 hours to clean, reset, and prepare for the final group of the season. Usually it's chaos, but fun chaos. This time felt different from the moment I woke up. The air was wrong. You know how the air feels before a storm? Electric, heavy, like it's pressing on your skin? It was like that, except the sky was perfectly clear. Not a cloud anywhere. Just this oppressive weight in the atmosphere that made everyone irritable and jumpy. Jordan! Meeting in the main lodge. Now. That was Beth, the camp director. Beth had been running Wayward Pines for 12 years. Nothing rattled her. Ever. But that morning, her voice had an edge I'd never heard before. I found the other counselors already gathered in the lodge's main room. 16 of us total, all looking confused. The junior counselors, the ones on their first or second year, were joking around. The seniors like me were quieter. We could feel something was off. Beth stood at the front with a laptop and projector set up. Her usual summer tan looked gray in the fluorescent lights. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she hadn't slept. Before the campers arrived, she began, her voice steady but strained. There's something you all need to see. It's a new orientation video. Corporate sent it over this morning. They want all staff to watch it before this week begins. That was red flag number 1. Corporate was what we called the company that owned the camp, Midwest Youth Adventures, LLC. They usually left us alone except for the occasional safety protocol update. They definitely didn't send random videos at 6 a.m. on a Sunday. Beth hit play. The video opened with footage of the camp from the 1980s. Grainy, washed-out colors, kids in tube socks and short shorts running around. The narrator's voice was professionally cheerful, but there was something underneath it, something forced. Camp Wayward Pines has been creating memories since 1987. But the land's history goes back much further. The video showed old black and white photographs, Native American artifacts, pioneer cabins. The Potawatomi people considered this land sacred. They performed rituals here to ensure safe passage between summer and winter. When European settlers arrived in the 1830s, they built on these traditions, creating their own ceremonies to honor the changing seasons. The footage shifted to the camp's early days, kids around a massive bonfire. The camera quality was poor, but you could see they were throwing something into the flames. Papers, cloth? The narrator continued. Every session at Camp Wayward Pines ends with our traditional Last Bonfire. Campers write their fears, their wishes, their dreams on special paper and cast them into the fire, symbolically releasing them to the universe. I'd been doing Last Bonfire ceremonies for 5 years. We used regular notebook paper. Kids wrote silly things, wishes for their crush to like them back, fears about starting high school. It was sweet, harmless. The video continued showing more footage from different decades, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, but something was wrong with the progression. In each successive decade, the Last Bonfire got smaller, the crowds got smaller, and in the more recent footage, you could see counselors in the background looking uncomfortable, herding kids away from something off camera. This year marks a special anniversary. It has been exactly 36 years since the last complete ritual. The conditions are finally right for its return. The screen went black. Then new footage. This wasn't archival. This was recent, maybe a week old. It showed our camp at night, filmed from the woods looking in. You could see the cabins, the main lodge, the fire pit, but the perspective was wrong. It wasn't security footage. Someone had been standing in the forest recording us. The final week requires special attention. Counselors must be vigilant. The old agreements must be honored. The pattern must be completed. 7 nights, 7 stories, 7 offerings. And on the 8th night, the video cut off abruptly. Static. Then Beth's laptop screen went blue. We sat in silence for a full minute. Finally, one of the junior counselors, Mike, laughed nervously. What the hell was that? Some kind of prank? Beth was pale, staring at her laptop. I don't know. Corporate sent it with instructions to play it for everyone. They said it was mandatory viewing. Corporate is messing with us, said Amy, another senior counselor. It's probably team-building BS, work together to solve the mystery or something. But those of us who'd been there longer knew better. I'd never seen Beth scared before, and she was scared. Has anyone, Beth asked slowly, noticed anything unusual about the registrations for this week? Sarah, who handled administrative stuff, nodded. Yeah, actually. We have exactly 22 campers. That's weird because we usually cap at 20 or go to 25. And they're all returners. Every single one has been here before. Some of them canceled other plans to come this specific week, Sarah continued, pulling out her phone to check emails. The Patterson twins were supposed to be in Hawaii. The Rodriguez family cut their vacation short. It's like they all had to be here this week specifically. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. There's more, Beth said. She pulled up a file on her laptop. I did some digging after receiving that video. The camp's history. 1987 wasn't really when it was founded. That's when it was refounded. Under new management after... She trailed off, reading something on her screen that made her face go even paler. After what? I asked after the incident of 1986, the last time they did the complete ritual. 17 children and 3 counselors went missing during the final bonfire. They were never found. The camp closed, ownership transferred, and when it reopened in 1987, all traces of what happened were scrubbed from the records. Bullshit, Mike said, but his voice wavered. That would have been news. People would know. It was news, Beth said, turning her laptop around. She'd found an archived newspaper article. The headline read, "Search continues for missing camp children." The date was August 21st, 1986, but the story was buried. The families were paid off, the land was sold, and the new owners, our corporate, agreed to certain conditions. Conditions that apparently included maintaining some kind of schedule. A horn honked outside. The first bus full of campers had arrived. Beth closed her laptop and stood up. We have a job to do. These kids are counting on us for a safe, fun week. Maybe this is all some elaborate corporate hazing. Maybe someone's trying to scare us. But either way, we do our jobs. We keep the campers safe. We run the activities. And we watch for anything unusual. She paused at the door. And whatever you do, don't mention any of this to the campers. Not until we know what we're dealing with. We filed out to greet the arriving kids, putting on our best counselor smiles and enthusiasm. But I noticed how we all kept glancing at the woods, how we all counted the kids a little more carefully, how we all avoided looking at the fire pit where, in 7 days, the last bonfire would burn. 22 campers climbed off that bus, all returners just like Sarah had said. They seemed normal, excited, chattering, hauling overstuffed backpacks. But as each one passed me, heading to their assigned cabins, I noticed something odd. They all had the same look in their eyes. Not fear, not excitement, recognition. Like they were coming home to something they'd been waiting for all year. That was Sunday, day 0, if you will. What happened Monday night was when I knew the video wasn't a prank. Story 2. The Lake Walker Monday started normal enough. Wake-up call at 7 a.m., breakfast at 7:30. Morning activities from 9 to noon, lunch, rest hour. Afternoon activities, dinner, evening program. I was assigned to lifeguard duty at the lake that afternoon with Amy. Lake Wayward was a selling point for the camp, 50 acres of pristine freshwater, perfect for swimming, canoeing, and kayaking. The lake was also why the camp could only run summer programs. By October, it would start to freeze, and it wouldn't fully thaw until May. The kids were in high spirits, splashing around in the designated swimming area. We had the usual safety setup, buoyed ropes marking the boundaries, a floating dock about 30 feet out, and 2 lifeguards on duty at all times. Jordan, Amy said from her lifeguard chair next to mine. Look at the Patterson twins, Emma and Ethan Patterson, 12-year-old returners on their 4th summer at camp. They were treading water near the boundary rope, staring out at the deeper part of the lake. Not moving, not playing, just staring. Hey, Patterson twins, I called out. Back toward the shallow end, please. They turned to look at me in perfect synchronization. No acknowledgement, no typical preteen eye roll. They just stared for a moment, then slowly swam back toward shore. But they kept looking back at the deep water. Weird kids this year, Amy muttered. You noticed it too? Are you kidding? They're all weird. Have you seen them after lights out? I did a cabin check last night, and half of them were sitting up in their beds, looking out the windows. Not talking, not using flashlights to read. Just sitting in the dark, looking outside. At what? That's the thing, their windows face different directions. It's not like they're all looking at the same thing. It's like they're waiting for something. A whistle blew. Free swim was over. The kids groaned but started making their way to shore. I counted heads, 22. All accounted for. But as the last kid climbed onto the beach, I saw something in the water. About 50 feet beyond the swimming boundary, there was a disturbance. Ripples spreading in a perfect circle, like something had just submerged. Amy, did you see, the ripples? Yeah, probably a fish. Big pike in this lake, but it happened again and again. The ripples were moving in a pattern, circling the swimming area just beyond the boundary rope. Whatever was making them was big, too big to be a fish. Everyone out! Out of the water now! I stood up on my chair, whistle blaring. The kids were already on shore, but something about my tone made them back away from the water line. Amy was standing now too, her hand shading her eyes as she studied the water. The ripples stopped. The lake went still, too still. Lakes are never completely smooth. There's always wind, current, something. But Lake Wayward looked like glass. Then I saw it. At first, I thought it was a person floating face down, a swimmer in trouble. I was about to dive in when Amy grabbed my arm. "Jordan, look at it." Really look. The shape was human-like, but wrong. The proportions were off, arms too long, torso too thin. And it wasn't floating. It was standing. Standing on the bottom of the lake in water that had to be 15 feet deep, with just its back breaking the surface. It started walking. Slow, deliberate steps along the lake bottom, following the boundary rope, walking the perimeter of where the kids had been swimming moments ago. "Get the campers to the lodge," I told Amy, not taking my eyes off the thing in the water. "Now." "What about now, Amy?" She herded the kids away, telling them we were having an emergency ice cream social. I stayed watching the thing complete its circuit. When it reached the point where it had started, it sank. Straight down, like someone had pulled it under. The water remained still. I radioed Beth, told her we needed to close the lake for the rest of the day. Maybe the rest of the week. Why? Her voice crackled through the walkie. "There's something in the water. Something big? Maybe someone dumped an alligator or..." "Jordan," her voice was flat. "Describe exactly what you saw." I did. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the connection had dropped. "Beth? Keep the lake closed. Don't tell anyone else what you saw. Come to my office after dinner." That evening, the kids were disappointed about the lake closure but distracted by s'mores and capture the flag. As they ran around in the growing dusk, their laughter echoing through the trees, I made my way to Beth's office in the administration building. She was there with a book. An old journal, leather-bound and water-damaged. She had it open to an entry, dated August 14th, 1950. "Read this," she said. The entry was in faded ink, but legible. "The lake walker appeared today, as expected. Kept to the boundaries, as agreed. Children were removed in time. No incidents. The pattern holds." "What pattern?" I asked. Beth flipped to another entry. August 14th, 1962, Lake Walker, more aggressive this year, tested the boundaries 3 times. Children noticed but remained calm. The conditioning holds. August 14th, 1974. Lake Walker surfaced during swimming hour. Had to evacuate. Children are asking questions. Recommend moving swimming to morning only for remainder of week. "This happens every 12 years?" I asked. "Only during the final week. Only when the conditions are right." Beth pulled out her laptop, showing a spreadsheet. "I've been tracking the patterns. Every 12 years, the last week of camp has incidents. Small ones, usually. Things the counselors explain away. But every 36 years, the complete ritual," I finished. 1950, 1986. 2022 should have been next. But camp was closed for COVID, so now 2023, we're on the cycle. "What is it? The thing in the lake?" Beth showed me another entry, this one from 1830, before the camp existed. It was from a settler's diary, barely legible. The natives warned us about the lake. They say something sleeps beneath it, something that wakes every dozen years to walk the boundaries they set, testing, watching, waiting for the barriers to weaken. They perform rituals to keep it contained. Fire rituals, blood rituals. We've agreed to continue them, God help us. "This is insane," I said. "We need to evacuate the camp." With what explanation? That there's a lake monster? Corporate would fire me, sue me, and reopen the camp with someone who hasn't read these journals. She was right. No one would believe us without proof. And even with proof, what do? We follow the pattern. 7 nights, 7 stories, 7 offerings. Keep the campers safe, maintain the boundaries, and hope that whatever agreement was made holds for one more cycle. A knock at the door interrupted us. Mike stuck his head in. "Hey, Beth, Jordan, we have a problem. 3 of the campers are missing. The Patterson twins and Lucy Chen. They were at Capture the Flag and then they just weren't. We found them at the lake. standing knee-deep in the water, fully clothed, holding hands in a line, staring at the spot where the lake walker had been. They weren't responsive when we called their names. We had to physically pull them out. When they finally snapped out of whatever trance they were in, none of them remembered leaving the game or walking to the lake. Lucy Chen looked at me with tears in her eyes and said something that made my blood run cold. It's angry that we're late. We were supposed to start yesterday. The first offering. We forgot the first offering. What offering, Lucy? But she just shook her head, confused. I don't know. I don't know why I said that. We took them to the nurse, who found nothing wrong. They were cold, wet, but unharmed. We called their parents, but oddly, none of them wanted their kids sent home. They've been looking forward to this week all year, each parent said, almost word for word. Don't ruin it for them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Lucy had said. The first offering, we'd forgotten something. But what? Around 2 a.m. I heard it, singing, soft, melodic, coming from the lake. I looked out my cabin window. There, right at the end of the dock, was a figure, tall, impossibly thin, dripping wet. It was singing in a language I didn't recognize. One by one, lights turned on in the camper cabins. I saw faces appear in windows, all the kids, watching, listening. Some were mouthing along to the words like they knew the song. The figure dove into the lake with barely a splash. The singing stopped. The lights went off. Tuesday morning, I found something on the dock. A piece of driftwood carved with symbols. It was placed precisely where the figure had stood. When I picked it up, it was warm to the touch despite the cool morning air. I brought it to Beth. She compared it to drawings in the journal. Found a match from 1986. It's a marker, she said. Day 2 of 7. Whatever's happening, we're already in it. Should we leave? Where would we go? You think it would just let us leave? I wanted to argue, but deep down I knew she was right. We were part of the pattern now. The kids, the counselors, the camp itself. We were all locked into something that had been set in motion long before any of us were born. That was Monday into Tuesday. Day 2 of 7. What happened on day 3 made me realize the lake walker was the least of our problems. Story 3. The Whispering Woods Tuesday morning's head count came up wrong. We had 23 campers. I counted again. 23, but we'd only checked in 22. I had the list, checked each name against faces at breakfast. Everyone was accounted for, plus one extra kid I didn't recognize. He sat at the end of the bench, eating cereal. About 11 years old, sandy brown hair, wearing standard camp clothes. Nothing unusual except that he shouldn't exist. Hey, buddy, I approached casually. I don't think we've met. What's your name? He looked up at me with perfectly normal brown eyes. Thomas Marsh. I checked my list. Note Thomas Marsh. When did you arrive, Thomas? Sunday, with everyone else. He went back to eating. The other kids acted like he'd always been there. When I quietly asked Emma Patterson if she knew Thomas, she looked at me like I was crazy. Of course. He's been in our cabin since Sunday, but he hadn't. I knew he hadn't. I had the registration list, the bunk assignments. There was no Thomas Marsh. I pulled Amy aside. Count the kids. 22, she said after a quick scan. Count again. Carefully. She did, pointing at each one. 23. Wait, that can't be right. You see him? Brown hair, end of the table? Yeah, but was he here yesterday? Neither of us could remember clearly. It was like trying to recall a dream. The harder we focused, the more it slipped away. Beth was in her office going through the old journals again. When I told her about Thomas, she went very still. Marsh, she said. Thomas Marsh. She flipped through pages frantically, then stopped. Here, 1986. Thomas Marsh, age 11, was one of the 17 children who disappeared during the Last Bonfire. That's impossible. Is it? After what you saw in the lake yesterday? She was right. We were past impossible. What do? We watch him, and we don't let him near the other children alone. But Thomas seemed harmless. He participated in activities, followed the rules, laughed at the appropriate times. The only odd thing was that none of us could remember him clearly once he was out of sight. I'd watch him during archery, then 5 minutes later struggle to recall if he'd hit the target or not. That afternoon was hiking time. I led a group of 12 campers, including Thomas, on the Whispering Woods Trail. It was called that because of the sound wind made through the pine trees, a constant soft susurration that sounded almost like voices. The trail was a 3-mile loop, well marked, impossible to get lost on. I'd done it dozens of times, but Tuesday it was different. The whispers were louder. And they weren't just wind. Mr. Jordan, Lucy Chen tugged on my shirt. The trees are talking. It's just the wind, Lucy. No, listen. They're saying names. I stopped walking and listened. She was right. Mixed in with the wind were voices, soft, barely audible, but definitely saying names. Emma, Ethan, Lucy, Thomas, every camper's name, whispered over and over by the trees themselves. Keep walking, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Stay on the trail, but the trail was changing. I knew this path by heart. There should have been a bend coming up, then a small bridge over a creek. Instead, the trail kept going straight, deeper into the woods. I checked my phone's GPS. No signal. The compass app spun randomly. Mr. Jordan, Thomas said, appearing at my elbow. We're supposed to go this way. He pointed to a barely visible path branching off to the left. That's not the trail. Thomas, it is today. His voice was different, older. The woods want to show you something. We're staying on the main trail, but when I turned back, the main trail was gone. There was only forest behind us, as if the path had never existed. The kids weren't panicking. That was the strangest part. They seemed expectant, like this was part of the program. This way, Thomas said again, and started walking down the side path. The other campers followed. I had no choice but to go with them. The path led deeper into the woods than any trail should. The trees were older here, massive pines that blocked out most of the sunlight. The whispering grew louder, more insistent. Then we reached the clearing. It was perfectly circular, about 30 feet across. In the center was a ring of stones blackened by ancient fire. Around the edges of the clearing were wooden posts, carved with symbols similar to the ones on the driftwood I'd found that morning. This is where it happened, Thomas said. The first time, before the camp, before the settlers, when the boundary was created. What boundary? Between what's here and what wants to be here. He walked to the center of the stone circle. Every 36 years, the boundary weakens. Things slip through. Like me, you're one of the missing kids from 1986. I'm what's left of him.
We all are?
Caught between, neither here nor there. The ritual took us but didn't finish. We've been waiting in the woods for 36 years for another chance. The other campers had formed a circle around the clearing. They were humming, a low, harmonious sound that made my teeth ache. A chance for what? To finish crossing over, or to come back? The Last Bonfire decides. 7 offerings over 7 nights. Then, the choice. Stay or go, live or fade. The fire chooses. Why these kids? Why now? They're marked. All of them. Their parents, or grandparents, or great-grandparents. Someone in their line was here before. Made a promise. Paid a price. The debt passes down until it's collected. I thought about what Sarah had said. Every camper this week was a returner. Their families had sent them here specifically this week. Their parents, no. Some do, some just feel the pull. The need to send their children here this week, this year, the pattern demands it. The humming grew louder. The whispers in the trees became a roar. And then I saw them, other figures emerging from the woods. Children, dozens of them, all about the age they'd been when they vanished. From 1986, from 1950, from years even earlier. Transparent, flickering, but undeniably there. "We're not supposed to be here this long," Thomas said, and for the first time, he sounded like the 11-year-old he appeared to be, scared, tired. The between place hurts. We want to go home. One way or another, how do I help you? Complete the ritual. 7 nights, 7 offerings. The last bonfire will open the door. Some will go through. Some will come back. The pattern continues. The ghostly children started walking toward my group. My living camper stood perfectly still, eyes closed, humming. The dead children reached out, not quite touching, but overlapping somehow, occupying the same space. "Stop!" I shouted, but my voice was swallowed by the whispers. Then, as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. The ghost children vanished. The humming ceased. My campers opened their eyes, looking confused. "Mr. Jordan?" Emma Patterson asked. "Why are we standing here?" They didn't remember. We were back on the normal trail, the clearing gone, the forest familiar again. Thomas was nowhere to be seen. I did another head count, 22. We finished the hike in silence. The kids seemed drained, exhausted. Several fell asleep on their feet during dinner. That night, I found Beth in the arts and crafts cabin preparing something. She had 22 pieces of paper, special paper, old and yellowed. "What are you doing?" "Getting ready for tomorrow night." The third offering. We're supposed to write something and burn it. The journals aren't clear on what. "Beth, I saw them today." The missing kids from 1986, all of them. "They're stuck here," she nodded, not surprised. "I know, I see them too sometimes, out of the corner of my eye, in reflections. They're waiting. For what? For us to get it right this time? To complete what was started. To honor the agreement." What agreement? With who? She showed me another journal entry, this one from the 1800s. The indigenous people knew. This land is thin. The veil between worlds is gossamer here. They made a pact with what lies beyond. Controlled crossings, regulated passages. The ritual maintains the balance. Without it, the veil tears. Things that should stay separate merge. The living and the dead, the real and the imagined, the past and the present, all colliding, uncontrolled, so if we don't complete the ritual, everything breaks down. The boundaries fail. And based on what happened in 1986 when they tried to stop it midway, people disappear. Or worse, they have to disappear. Stuck between like those kids, we're really going to go through with this? Risk our campers? They're already at risk. They've been marked since birth. At least if we complete the ritual, some of them get to choose. Without it, they're all claimed by default, I wanted to argue. But I'd seen Thomas, seen the ghost children, felt the woods shift around us. We were already in too deep. That night I stayed up watching the cabins. Around midnight I saw them, all 22 campers, walking in single file toward the arts and crafts cabin. Their eyes were closed, but they moved with purpose, sleepwalking, but coordinated. They each took one of the special pieces of paper Beth had prepared. Without opening their eyes, they wrote something on their papers. Then they filed back to their cabins, still asleep. I checked the papers after they left. Each one had written the same thing in handwriting that wasn't quite their own. We remember. We return. We complete the circle. Wednesday was coming. Day 3, the night of the third offering. I was starting to understand that we weren't running this camp anymore. Maybe we never had been. Something older, hungrier, and infinitely patient was in charge now, and it was just getting started. Story 4. The Night Singers Wednesday started with fog, thick, oppressive fog that rolled in from the lake and refused to burn off even as the sun climbed higher. Visibility was maybe 20 feet. The camp felt isolated, cut off from the world at breakfast. The campers were different, quieter. They moved in sync sometimes, reaching for orange juice at the same moment, turning their heads simultaneously when someone spoke. It was subtle, but once you noticed it, you couldn't unsee it. Has anyone else noticed their coordinating? Mike asked during our morning staff meeting. Like a hive mind, Amy added. Yesterday during arts and crafts, They all stopped painting at the exact same second. Just froze brushes in midair for about 10 seconds, then continued like nothing happened. Beth had bags under her eyes. She'd been up all night reading the journals, trying to understand the pattern. "Tonight is the third offering," she said. "The journals call it the Night of Songs. We need to be prepared for—" She was interrupted by singing. It was coming from outside, from the fog. Children's voices, high and clear, singing in harmony, but the language wasn't English. It wasn't any language I recognized. We rushed outside. The campers were standing in a perfect circle in the fog-shrouded field, holding hands, singing. Their eyes were closed, heads tilted back. The song was beautiful and terrifying, ancient-sounding, with notes that shouldn't have been possible for human voices to hit. "How do they all know the words?" Sarah whispered. As we watched, the fog began to swirl around them, forming shapes, figures. I saw faces in the mist, children's faces, old and young, some in modern clothes, others in outfits from decades past. They were singing too, their ghostly voices joining the chorus. Thomas Marsh was among them, flickering between solid and transparent. The song built to a crescendo and then stopped abruptly. The campers opened their eyes, looking dazed. "What? What were we doing?" Lucy Chen asked, rubbing her eyes. "You were singing," I told her. "Do you remember the song?" She shook her head, but then hummed a few notes. "It's like, I know it, but I don't. Like when you have a song stuck in your head but can't remember where it's from." We got them back to normal activities, but the singing continued throughout the day. Individual campers would start humming the melody while painting or swimming. Others would join in unconsciously. By lunch, the entire dining hall was humming in harmony without seeming to realize it. During rest hour, I decided to check the old storage building behind the main lodge. If there were records from 1986, they might be there. The storage building was musty and dark, packed with decades of camp equipment. In the back corner, I found a filing cabinet labeled 1986 Do Not Remove. Inside were incident reports, police statements, and newspaper clippings. But at the bottom was something else, a cassette tape labeled Night 3, The Singing, August 16th, 1986. I found an old boombox and played the tape. Static at first, then voices. A man speaking, nervous. "This is Director Williams. It's 11:47 p.m. on August 16th. The children have begun the night song ritual without prompting. All 43 campers are participating, including the ones we tried to isolate. They're singing in Old Potawatomi, though none of them speak the language. The singing started on the tape, the same song our campers had sung that morning, but as I listened I realized there were words underneath the melody, English words, barely audible. We call to those who came before. We call to those who come after. The veil grows thin, the door opens wide. 7 nights until the crossing." The tape continued. Director Williams's voice grew more panicked. "They won't stop. It's been 3 hours. Some of the younger ones are crying while they sing, but they can't stop. We tried to separate them, but, oh God, the fog is moving. There's something in the fog, multiple somethings. They're joining the circle. The tape cut to screaming, then static. Ejected the tape, my hands shaking. But there was another underneath it. Night 7, The Last Bonfire, August 20th, 1986. I shouldn't have played it. But I had to know this tape was different. It started mid-crisis, multiple voices shouting, "The fire's too big! It's spreading!" Where are the children? They walked into it. They just walked straight into the fire and disappeared. No, look, they're coming out the other side, but they're different. That's not Emma. That looks like Emma, but it's not. The trade! They're completing the trade. Then a child's voice, calm and clear. The pattern demands balance. 17 for 17. Those who leave, those who stay. The door closes at dawn. An adult screaming, "That's my daughter's voice, but she's right here." Who is that? Static. Then nothing. I put the tapes back and left the storage building. The fog had grown thicker. I could barely see 10 feet ahead. That evening, we tried to maintain normal routine. Dinner, evening activity, capture the flag again. But the fog made it impossible. We called it off early and gathered everyone in the main lodge for a movie night. But the power went out at 9 p.m. In the darkness, the singing started again. This time, it wasn't just the campers. We could hear voices from outside, hundreds of them, coming from the fog. The campers stood up in the dark lodge and walked to the windows, pressing their hands against the glass. I flicked on my flashlight. Their eyes were rolled back, showing only white. But they were watching something we couldn't see. The night singers. Thomas's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Every child who ever sang the song, every voice added to the chorus. Building power. Building bridges. Bridges to where? I shouted into the darkness. To the other camp, the one that exists alongside this one, where the traded children go, where the pattern lives. The emergency lights kicked on, bathing everything in red. In that crimson glow, I saw them, translucent children standing between our campers, dozens of them, all singing. Beth ran in with an armload of the old papers and a lighter. The third offering? We have to complete the third offering. She started lighting the papers, throwing them into the fireplace. Each camper needs to burn their paper, now. But the campers were entranced, swaying with the phantom children. We had to physically guide them to the fireplace, put the papers in their hands, help them toss them into the flames. As each paper burned, that camper stopped singing and collapsed. We caught them, laid them on the floor. Amy checked pulses. They were all fine, just unconscious. When the last paper burned, the singing stopped entirely. The phantom children vanished. The fog began to recede. The campers woke up gradually, confused and exhausted. I had the strangest dream, Emma Patterson said. I was at camp, but it wasn't this camp. Everything was backwards. The lake was on the wrong side. The cabins were different colors, and there were other kids there. Kids I recognized but had never met. Others nodded, describing similar dreams. A reverse camp. A mirror world. Beth pulled me and the senior counselors aside. The pattern is accelerating. The journals say the last 3 nights are the most dangerous. Tomorrow is the night of shadows, then the night of memories, then the night of choosing. And finally, Ma, the last bonfire I finished? We need to make a decision, Amy said. Do we try to stop this or do we see it through? If we try to stop it, we end up like 1986, Beth said. 17 children lost between worlds. But if we complete it, we might lose them anyway, Mike said. Or, Sarah said quietly, we trust that the pattern knows what it's doing, that this ritual has worked for centuries for a reason. We debated for an hour while the campers slept around us. In the end, the decision was made for us. When we looked outside, we saw that the fog had formed words in the field, visible in the moonlight, 4 more nights. The pattern must complete. Thursday was coming, day 4 of 7, the night of shadows. I stayed awake in the lodge with the sleeping campers. Around 3 a.m., I saw something that made me understand we were past the point of no return. The campers' shadows were moving independently of their bodies, stretching, reaching, pulling toward the windows, toward the forest, toward something we couldn't see. One shadow actually detached, sliding across the floor like oil. It reformed into the shape of a child I didn't recognize, 3-dimensional and dark. It looked at me with eyes that were holes in reality, then melted back into the original camper's shadow. We weren't just dealing with ghosts or memories. We were dealing with something that existed between dimensions, using our camp as a crossing point. And our campers were the bridge. Story 5. The Shadow Play. Thursday morning broke without sun. The fog was gone, but thick clouds covered the sky, casting everything in gray twilight despite it being 8 a.m. The campers woke up wrong. Not sick, not tired, but wrong. Their shadows didn't match their movements. When Emma Patterson raised her hand at breakfast, her shadow waved. When Lucas Chen walked forward, his shadow walked backward. "Nobody else sees it," Mike whispered to me. I asked 3 kids if they noticed anything weird, and they looked at me like I was crazy. But we counselors could see it. All of us. The shadows were autonomous, independent, alive. During morning activities, it got worse. In arts and crafts, the shadows were painting different pictures than their owners. In archery, shadows drew bows while the campers stood still. And at the lake, we'd reopened it despite my protests. The shadow swimming in the water didn't match the children swimming above. "Look at the water," Amy pointed during lifeguard duty. The lake reflected not our campers, but different children. Children in old-fashioned swimsuits. Children with different faces. Children who'd been here before. "The camps are overlapping," Beth said when I reported this. She had the journals spread across her desk, along with maps of the camp from different years. "Look at this." She showed me aerial photos from 1950, 1962, 1974, 1986, 98, 2010, and 2023. The camp layout was different in each one, buildings in different places, paths that changed. Even the lake's shoreline had shifted. "But that's normal," I said. "Camps renovate?" "No, look closer." She overlaid the images on her laptop. "These aren't renovations. The camp exists in multiple configurations simultaneously. Every version that's ever existed is still here, just sideways, parallel. And right now, they're all trying to exist in the same space. That's impossible. Jordan, their shadows are literally living different lives right now." "We're past impossible." She was right. I watched out her window as campers played volleyball. Their shadows were playing a completely different game, something with different rules, different positions. "Tonight is the night of shadows," Beth continued. "According to this journal from 1910, before the camp existed, the indigenous people would perform a ritual where shadows would show the truth. Past, future, and present overlapping. What truth? Who stays and who goes? Who belongs to which world?" That afternoon, Thomas Marsh reappeared. Not gradually. One second the bench was empty, the next he was sitting there, eating a sandwich. "You're back," I said. "Never left." "Just sideways for a bit." He took another bite. "Tonight's important, Mr. Jordan. The shadows show truth. Some of your campers, they're not supposed to be here. And some of us aren't supposed to be there." "There?" He pointed at the lake. In the reflection, I could see a complete mirror image of our camp, but filled with different children, the missing ones from all the previous years. "The trade has to balance," Thomas explained. "That's what the Last Bonfire does. Returns people to where they belong, but first, the shadows have to sort everyone out." "You're saying some of our campers belong in that other camp? And some of us belong in yours." The pattern mixed up in 1986 when they tried to stop it. Kids got stuck halfway. Tonight, the shadows show who goes where. As the day progressed, the shadow situation escalated. By dinner, some campers had multiple shadows. Emma Patterson had 3, one that moved with her, one that moved opposite, and one that stood perfectly still no matter what she did. Other campers were losing their shadows entirely. Lucy Chen's shadow faded throughout the day until by evening she cast nothing at all. "I feel weird," she told me. "Like I'm not all here, like part of me is somewhere else." The evening activity was supposed to be a talent show. We set up in the lodge, but when the lights dimmed for the first performance, we realized our mistake. In the half-light, the shadows took over. They peeled off the walls, three-dimensional and independent. Shadow children from every era of the camp filled the lodge. They weren't threatening, just present, watching. Our campers stood frozen as their shadows detached and joined the crowd. Then, the shadow play began. It was like watching a movie projected in 3 dimensions around us. The shadows acted out scenes, not random ones, but specific moments. I saw a shadow child fall from a tree and break their leg. Another shadow child pull a drowning friend from the lake. Shadow counselors comforting crying shadow campers. These are memories, Beth breathed. Every significant moment that ever happened at this camp. But then the scenes changed. Instead of the past, we were seeing the future, or possible futures. I watched a shadow version of myself leading campers to safety during a storm. Then the scene shifted. Shadow me watching helplessly as campers walked into the lake and didn't come back. Another shift. Shadow me at a perfectly normal closing ceremony. Everyone safe and happy. Another, the camp in flames, shadows fleeing in all directions. Possible outcomes, Thomas said, appearing beside me. The shadows show what might be. Tomorrow, the memories show what was. Saturday, we choose what will be. And Sunday? Sunday, the last bonfire makes it permanent. The shadow play continued for hours. Each camper watched their shadow act out different possibilities. Some shadows grew stronger, more defined. Others faded until they were barely wisps. Then, at exactly midnight, everything stopped. The shadows snapped back to their owners like rubber bands. The impact was physical. Campers stumbled, some fell. When they stood up, their shadows were normal again, except for 5 campers whose shadows didn't return. Emma and Ethan Patterson, Lucy Chen, Marcus Williams, Sarah Kim. They stood in the center of the lodge, translucent, fading. "We feel it," Emma said, her voice echoing strangely. "The pull. The other camp wants us." "Because you were supposed to be traded in 1986, Thomas said sadly. "Your parents were campers then. They were marked for the trade but ran. The debt passed to you." "No," I said. "We're not trading children." "It's not a trade," Thomas corrected. "It's a return. They already belong there. Look at them." He was right. The 5 shadowless campers were becoming more transparent by the minute. "But if they go," Beth said, "who comes back?" Thomas smiled sadly. 5 of us, the ones who shouldn't have been taken. The ones who belonged here all along. 4 other ghost children materialized beside Thomas. They looked more solid than our fading campers. "This is insane," Mike said. "We can't just let children disappear." "They're disappearing anyway," Thomas pointed out. "The only question is whether we complete the pattern or leave everyone stuck halfway, like in 1986. Lucy Chen was barely visible now. "It's okay, Mr. Jordan, I can see it now. The other camp, it's not bad. It's just different, like a dream you live in. And there are so many kids there who want to come home. Let them come home. Your parents—" "No," Emma Patterson interrupted. "They've always known. Why do you think they sent us this specific week? They've been having dreams about it for months. The pattern calling them. I wanted to protest more, but what could I do? They were already fading, already being pulled into that other space." "Tomorrow is the night of memories," Thomas said. "Everyone will remember everything. Every loop, every trade, every ritual back to the beginning. It will hurt, but it's necessary. The memories power the final choosing, and if we refuse, if we try to stop it, then everyone gets stuck. Not here, not there, but nowhere. Forever." The 5 translucent campers walked to the windows, looking out at their reflections. But in the glass, they were solid, real, playing and laughing in that other camp. "One more day in between," Lucy said. "Then we go home. All of us go home." That night, I didn't even try to sleep. I sat outside watching the cabins. Around 3 a.m. I saw them, all the campers, both solid and translucent, walking in their sleep toward the fire pit. They arranged themselves in concentric circles. The solid campers on the inside, the fading ones next, then the ghost children, then shadows of children I'd never seen before. They stood there until dawn, not moving, not speaking, just standing, waiting. When the sun finally rose, they all walked back to their cabins as if nothing had happened. Friday was coming. The night of memories. Beth gathered all the counselors that morning. "We have a choice," she said. "Tonight, when the memories come, we can try to shield ourselves, stay ignorant, or we can embrace them, understand fully what we're part of." "What do you recommend?" Amy asked. "I think we need to know. The campers will experience it whether we do or not. They need guides who understand what they're going through." We all agreed, though I could see the fear in everyone's eyes. That night, we would remember everything. Every cycle, every ritual, every trade, going back centuries. I wasn't sure our minds could handle that much truth, but we were about to find out. Story 6, The Memory. Flood Friday morning, the camp was silent. Not quiet, silent. No birds, no wind, no rustling leaves. Even our footsteps seemed muted. The campers moved through breakfast mechanically. They weren't talking, weren't laughing, just eating, waiting. "It's like they're conserving energy," Amy observed. She was right. They were preparing for something that would take everything they had. Beth had spent the night transcribing journal entries onto a timeline. She showed it to us during morning staff meeting. "The ritual goes back at least 400 years, she said. The Potawatomi, then the French traders, then the English settlers, then the Americans. Each group that came to this land inherited the obligation." "Obligation to what?" Mike asked. "To maintain the boundary. This land is a natural weak point between dimensions. Without the ritual, without the trades, the boundaries collapse. And if they collapse, then there's no separation between the living and the dead, between the real and the possible, between what is and what was." Sarah pulled up news articles on her phone. "Look at this. Every place where the ritual was abandoned, Roanoke, the colonists stopped performing the local indigenous rituals. They vanished. Dudleytown, Connecticut, same thing. Hundreds of locations worldwide where people disappeared when they stopped maintaining the local dimensional boundaries. So we're what? Cosmic maintenance workers." Mike's sarcasm couldn't hide his fear. "We're witnesses," Beth corrected. "And tonight, we'll understand why." The day passed strangely. Time seemed elastic. Minutes felt like hours, then hours passed in seconds. The translucent campers were barely visible now, just shimmer in the air. The ghost children, conversely, were becoming more solid. At lunch, Thomas sat next to me. He looked almost real now. I could see details, freckles, a small scar on his chin. "You're afraid of tonight," he said. "Shouldn't I be?" "Yes, the memories hurt. They change you. You'll see things from perspectives that aren't your own, feel deaths that weren't yours, experience losses that happened before you were born. Why is it necessary? Because someone has to remember. Someone has to carry the story forward. The ritual isn't just about trading children. It's about maintaining the memory of why we do this. Forgetting is what breaks the pattern. As evening approached, we prepared. Beth had found instructions in a 1920s journal. We were to gather in the lodge, sit in a circle, and let it happen. No resistance. "Fighting the memories can break your mind," she read. "Accept them. Let them flow through you. You are a vessel, not a container." We arranged the campers in the main room. The solid ones, the translucent ones, the ghost children, all intermixed. The counselors formed an outer circle. At exactly sunset, 7:43 p.m., it began. The memories didn't come gently. They flooded in like a dam bursting. I was a Potawatomi warrior in 1620, performing the first ritual at this lake, making a bargain with something ancient that lived beneath the water. I felt his fear, his determination, the weight of responsibility for his tribe's safety. I was a French trader's daughter in 1743, watching children walk into a bonfire and emerge changed, different, other. I felt her confusion and terror. I was a settler's son in 1832, marked for the trade but hidden by his parents, living his whole life knowing something was hunting him, waiting for him to return. I was Director Williams in 1986, trying to stop the ritual, watching it go wrong. Seeing children trapped between worlds, I felt his guilt, his horror, his desperate attempts to save them, the memories layered, overlapped, contradicted. I was dozens of people across centuries, all connected by this place, this obligation, this terrible necessary ritual. Around me, I could hear the others experiencing the same thing. Amy was crying. Mike was curled in a fetal position. Sarah was speaking in languages she didn't know. The campers were glowing, literally glowing with a soft white light, their bodies conducting memory like electricity. Then the deeper memories came. Not human memories, memories of the thing beneath the lake. The entity that existed between dimensions, that fed on the ritual, that maintained the boundaries in exchange for what I saw, felt, knew the answer. It fed on stories, on memories, on the narrative of human experience. The trades weren't sacrifices. They were exchanges of stories. Children who'd lived one story traded for children who'd lived another. The entity collected both stories, grew stronger, held the dimensions apart with the strength of accumulated human experience. But in 1986, when they tried to stop it mid-ritual, the stories got tangled. Children stuck between narratives. The entity weakened. The boundaries began to fail. Now, 36 years later, we were untangling the stories, returning everyone to their proper narrative. The memories shifted again. Now I was seeing possible futures. If we completed the ritual, 5 campers would transfer to the other camp, existing in a dimension of eternal summer, eternal childhood, their stories feeding the entity forever. 5 ghost children would return, grown now, with the memories of both worlds. The boundaries would hold for another 36 years. If we failed, the boundaries would collapse entirely. Past, present, and future would merge. The camp would become unstuck in time, existing in all eras simultaneously. People would age and de-age randomly. The dead would walk with the living. Reality would become negotiable. The visions were overwhelming. I felt my sense of self fragmenting, lost in the flood of other people's experiences. Then I heard singing. Lucy Chen, barely visible now, was singing the song from Wednesday. The other translucent campers joined in, then the ghost children. Then everyone. The song became an anchor, a single thread through all the memories. Every person who'd ever sung it, going back centuries, was connected. We were all part of one long story, one continuous narrative. The memories began to organize themselves. Instead of chaos, they became a history. A true history of this place and our role in it, I understood now. We weren't victims or sacrifices. We were participants in something ancient and necessary. Every generation passed the responsibility to the next. The ritual wasn't about losing children. It was about maintaining the barrier between what is and what could be. The memory flood slowed, then stopped. I opened my eyes. When had I closed them? Hours had passed. It was nearly midnight. Everyone was awake, aware, changed. We all remembered everything now. 2 more days, Beth said, her voice hoarse. Tomorrow, the night of choosing. The campers decide who stays and who goes. Then Sunday, the last bonfire, everyone said in unison. The translucent campers were just outlines now. The ghost children looked fully human. We should call the parents, Mike suggested. They already know. Emma Patterson's fading voice said. They're remembering too. Everyone connected to this place is remembering tonight. I checked my phone. Dozens of missed calls and texts from parents. Not panicked, understanding. They remembered their own camp experiences, their own near trades, their own debts to the pattern. One text from Mrs. Patterson. We knew this day would come. Take care of them, whichever world they choose. Saturday was coming. The night of choosing, the hardest night. Because now that we remembered everything, we understood the weight of the choice. Stay in this world solid and real but forever touched by the knowledge of what lies beyond. Or go to the other camp, eternal and dreamlike, but never quite real again. The 5 translucent campers had to choose by tomorrow night, and based on what I'd seen in the memories, not all of them would choose to come back. Story 7, The Choosing Ground. Saturday morning arrived with impossible weather. It was simultaneously sunny and overcast, warm and cold, calm and windy. The camp existed in multiple states at once. The boundaries are almost gone, Beth explained. We're in the overlap now. The translucent campers were invisible unless you looked directly at them, and even then, they were just suggestions of children. The ghost children, however, were indistinguishable from the living. At breakfast, we had 2 full sets of campers, 22 living, though 5 were barely there, and 17 returned, though they looked completely real. They sat at the same tables, occupying the same spaces, existing in parallel. This is unsustainable, Amy said. Reality can't support this much overlap. Just until tomorrow night, Thomas said. He looked entirely human now. After the last bonfire, everyone will be where they belong. The day's activities were surreal. We ran programs for campers in different dimensions, teaching archery to children we could see, and children we couldn't. Lifeguarding swimmers who existed in our lake and others who swam in a lake 36 years ago. The choosing would happen at midnight. That's what the memories had shown us. At the intersection between Saturday and Sunday, between the last full day and the day of the last bonfire, each traded child would choose their world. As the day progressed, I talked to each of the 5 translucent campers. Emma Patterson was pragmatic. I see both worlds clearly now. This one has my family, my future, college, marriage, death. That one has eternal summer, friends who never age, endless possibilities, but no growth. It's not an easy choice. Ethan Patterson was torn. Emma and I have to choose the same thing. We're twins. We can't be separated by dimensions. Lucy Chen was philosophical. In the other camp, you become a story. An eternal story, always being told. Here, you live a story, but it ends. Which is better, to be a permanent fiction or a temporary truth? Marcus Williams was scared. My older brother went to camp in 1986. He was one of the 17 who disappeared. If I go to the other camp, I'll see him again. But my parents already lost one son. Can I make them lose another? Sarah Kim was quiet. She spent the day walking the camp, touching trees, memorizing faces. I'm saying goodbye either way, either to this world or to the possibility of the other. Both losses hurt. The ghost children were experiencing their own struggles. I've been 10 years old for 36 years, Thomas told me. If I return to this world, I'll age rapidly to where I should be, 46. I'll go from child to middle-aged in moments. Is that life worth living? But you'll be alive, I said. Really alive. I've been alive in the other camp. Just differently alive. We grow but we don't age. We learn but we don't change. We experience but we don't develop. It's existence without progress. That evening, we held a final campfire. Not the last bonfire, that would be tomorrow. This was just a regular campfire. Songs, s'mores, stories, but everything had weight to it. Every song felt like a goodbye. Every story felt like a testament. The Patterson twins sat together holding hands. Lucy Chen made friendship bracelets for everyone, her translucent fingers barely able to grip the thread. Marcus Williams played guitar, his outline shimmering in the firelight. Sarah Kim took photos with a camera that existed in both dimensions, capturing images of solid and ghostly children together. At 11:30 p.m., we walked to the choosing ground. It wasn't a place I'd known existed before the memories. It was deeper in the woods than any trail went, in a grove of ancient oaks that predated European settlement. The trees formed a natural circle, their branches intertwining overhead to create a living cathedral. In the center was a stone, not placed there, grown there. A natural formation that looked like an altar. The 5 translucent campers stood on one side. 5 of the ghost children, including Thomas, stood on the other. The rest of us formed a circle around them at exactly midnight. The air in the center of the circle split, not like fabric tearing, like reality deciding to exist in 2 places at once. Through the split, we could see the other camp. It was identical to ours, but eternally lit by golden hour sunlight. Children played in the distance, hundreds of them, all the traded children from centuries of rituals. "The moment of choosing," Thomas announced. "Step forward to go through. Step back to stay." Emma and Ethan Patterson looked at each other. The entire conversation passed in that glance. Then together they stepped backward toward our world. Their forms solidified slightly. Lucy Chen closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. She stepped forward toward the other camp. Her form faded more. Marcus Williams didn't hesitate. He sprinted forward, calling out, "Jeremy! Jeremy, I'm coming!" He passed through the split and solidified on the other side, where another boy, his long-lost brother, caught him in a hug. Sarah Kim stood perfectly still for a long moment. Then she spoke. "I choose both." Everyone froze. "That's not possible," Thomas said, "isn't it? The boundaries are failing because we keep them so rigid. What if someone existed in both, a bridge, a permanent link between worlds?" The split in reality flickered, considering. "I could carry messages, stories, keep the connection without the trauma of the trade. Evolution of the ritual." The ancient trees creaked. The stone in the center hummed. Something was considering her proposal. Then the entity beneath the lake spoke, not in words but in understanding that flooded all our minds. "Acceptable. One bridge, one story carrier, one who walks between." Sarah Kim stepped neither forward nor back but sideways, positioning herself exactly on the line of the split. Her form solidified and faded simultaneously, existing fully in both states. "I'll grow up in both worlds," she said, wonder in her voice. "Age here, stay young there. To carry stories between. Keep the balance without the loss." The 5 ghost children made their choices. Thomas and 2 others stepped back toward our world. They aged rapidly but not traumatically, their bodies catching up to their chronological age in moments. Thomas became a 46-year-old man, but retained his memories of both worlds. 2 ghost children chose to return to the other camp, preferring their eternal childhood to the challenges of sudden adulthood. The split began to close, but before it did, all the children in the other camp approached. Hundreds of them. All the traded children from centuries of rituals. They weren't sad or trapped. They were content, different but content. "Tell our families we're okay," one called out. "We're just living different stories." The split sealed. The choosing ground returned to being just a grove of old trees. The count was different now. Emma and Ethan Patterson solid again. Thomas and 2 others, now adults, standing confused in their aged bodies. Sarah Kim flickering between dimensions but present. Lucy Chen and Marcus Williams gone to the other side. "Tomorrow," Beth said. "The last bonfire makes it permanent." We walked back to camp in silence. The translucent effect was gone. Everyone was solid, real, present. The camp felt more stable, less fluid, but Sarah Kim was changed. She existed in quantum superposition, here and not here, young and aging, real and story simultaneously. "I can see both camps all the time now," she told me. "Lucy and Marcus are happy. They're playing capture the flag with children from the 1800s. Time doesn't mean the same thing there." Sunday was coming. The last bonfire. One final ritual to seal the boundaries for another 36 years. But would it be like the previous times? Or had Sarah Kim's choice changed everything? Story 8, The Last Bonfire. Sunday, August 20th, 2023. I woke to the sound of every bell, alarm, and phone in the camp ringing simultaneously at 6 a.m. Not a wake-up call, a proclamation. Today was the day. The camp looked different in the morning light, older. Every building showed its true age. The original 1950s structures, the 1970s additions, the 1980s renovations, all existing at once. The trees were simultaneously saplings and ancient giants. The lake reflected not the sky, but every sky it had ever reflected. Time is overlapping, Beth explained at the emergency staff meeting. Past, present, and future converging on tonight's ritual. We need to keep the campers calm and safe until sundown. The campers, all 39 of them now, including the aged returns and Sarah Kim in her quantum state, were eerily calm. They moved through the day's activities with purpose, preparing. Thomas, now a middle-aged man in a child's camp t-shirt, stretched across his adult frame, helped organize things. His memories of 36 years in the other camp made him invaluable. The last bonfire isn't just fire, he explained. It's every fire that's ever burned here, every story ever told around flames, every marshmallow roasted, every song sung, every fear faced, all of it concentrated into one night. The preparation was meticulous. We gathered wood, not just any wood, but pieces from significant moments. The old dock where generations of campers had learned to swim, boards from renovated cabins, branches from the tree where the camp's founder had carved his initials in 1950. Each piece of wood was wrapped in paper, the special paper Beth had prepared, now covered with the campers' writings, their fears, dreams, memories, stories. As the sun began to set, we assembled at the fire pit. But it wasn't the normal fire pit anymore. It had expanded, grown, become a natural amphitheater carved into the earth. Stone seats that hadn't been there before ringed the pit in concentric circles, worn smooth by centuries of use that hadn't happened yet. The campers took their places. The originals, the returns, and Sarah Kim, who flickered between dimensions with each heartbeat. Beth stood with the torch. The last bonfire of 2023, the completion of the pattern, the sealing of the boundary. But before she could light it, the ground shook. From the lake, something rose. Not the lake walker from Monday, something older, larger, more fundamental. The entity that had been beneath the lake since before human memory. It wasn't terrifying. It was incomprehensible. A being made of water and shadow and light and story, constantly shifting between states. Sometimes it looked like a massive serpent, sometimes like a tree made of liquid starlight, sometimes like nothing at all. The pattern is broken, it spoke into our minds. The girl who walks between has changed the rules. Sarah Kim stepped forward, flickering more rapidly now. The pattern needed to evolve. Eternal separation causes pain. Connection without consumption. That's the new way. Untested, dangerous, the boundaries could collapse. Or they could strengthen, she replied. Stories shared between worlds, not hoarded in one. The entity feeds on narrative. Why limit the source? The entity considered. The air itself held its breath. Then, from the woods, they came. Every child who had ever attended the camp. Every counselor who had ever worked there, not physically, temporally. Echoes of every summer converging on this moment. I saw myself at 18, my first summer as a counselor. I saw Beth as a young camper in the 1990s. I saw Director Williams from 1986, the weight of failure in his eyes. I saw Potawatomi children from before colonization, French traders' kids from the 1700s, settlers' children from the 1800s, all here, all watching, all part of the pattern, the vote, the entity declared. All who are part of the pattern must choose. Maintain the old way or embrace the new. One by one, the temporal echoes voted, not with words but with intent, their choices rippling through time. The children who had been traded voted overwhelmingly for the new way, connection over separation. The parents who had lost children voted for connection. The counselors who had carried the burden of the ritual voted for evolution. Even director Williams' Echo voted for change, tears streaming down his temporal face. Consensus, the entity said. The pattern evolves. The bridge is accepted. Sarah Kim glowed, not with light, but with possibility. She was becoming something new, a permanent link between dimensions, a story that existed in multiple states simultaneously. Light the fire, she said, her voice harmonizing with itself across dimensions. Beth touched the torch to the prepared wood. The fire that erupted wasn't orange or red. It was every color that fire had ever been. Blue at the base, green in the middle, silver at the tips. It burned without consuming, existed without destroying. One by one, the campers approached the fire and threw in their papers. But instead of burning, the papers transformed into light, stories made visible. We could see each fear faced, each dream pursued, each memory treasured. They spiraled up into the night sky, joining the stars. The aged returns, Thomas and the others, threw in objects from their 36 years in the other camp. Impossible objects that shouldn't exist. A flower that never wilted. A photo of children who were never born. A song written in a language that was never spoken. Each object became part of the fire's story, strengthening the narrative that held the dimensions apart. Then Sarah Kim walked into the fire. We all lunged forward, but she held up her hand. She wasn't burning. She was becoming one with it, her quantum existence spreading through the flames. I can see it all now, she said, her voice coming from the fire itself. Every summer that ever was or will be, every child who finds magic here, every counselor who keeps them safe, every parent who trusts us with their most precious stories. She reached out from the fire, not her hand, but her essence, and touched each camper. As she did, they gained something. Not the full sight between dimensions, but a little bit. Enough to know that death isn't an ending, that love transcends boundaries, that stories never really die. The new pattern is set, Sarah Kim's voice echoed. Every 36 years, a new bridge will be chosen, someone to walk between worlds and keep the connection. The trades are ended. The separation is... Something went wrong with this response. Please try again. A huge thank you to everyone who stayed with me until the very end. Your presence makes this journey into the unknown feel a little less lonely, and I'm really grateful you chose to spend your evening here. I hope these stories gave you exactly what you were looking for, the perfect mix of fear and fascination. There's something special about how we can all come together in the darkness, united by our love for a good scare. I truly hope tonight's tales hit you just as hard as they did me. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel for more creepy content. Your support helps me keep bringing these stories to life, and I'd love for you to be back tomorrow night when I share more mysteries and chills. Until then, sleep tight, dream sweetly, and don't let tonight's stories creep into your dreams. But if they do, just remember, they're only stories. Sweet dreams, my friend. See you tomorrow night.